subscribing. Yeah.
Yes.
It's in. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Plotnitsa, as Ritvars already mentioned, and I'm national contact point for European innovation ecosystems, as well as European Innovation Council and European Institute of Innovation Technologies, and the Latvian Council of Science. And together with my colleague Ritvars, we are responsible for EIE in Latvia. So today, I have one main job to explain what is currently available under EIE, and more importantly, whether there is something in it for you. So, and I promise not to read the work program aloud. You can do it yourselves, and it's not particularly entertaining, trust me. So you have seen the agenda. The plan is very simple. So my part is really what is EIE, what is open, who is this call for, and what does the Commission actually want from you. So firstly, just to put EIE on the map, that's exactly the slide that Ritvars is showing. So Horizon Europe is huge, we know it. We have excellent science here, we have global challenges, EIC, EIT, and somewhere here we have European innovation ecosystems as well. So EIE sits under Pillar 3, Innovation Europe. And the key word really is ecosystem here. So we are not primarily funding one company to develop one product. We are interested in what happens in between the organizations. So how universities work with companies, how startups meet investors, how research reaches the market, how regions cooperate most probably, and how knowledge moves in between the countries. So this is exactly the space that EIE is trying to improve. So the next slide. And before we get to the EIE, a very quick glimpse at what Latvia has now. So currently we have over 400 Horizon Europe projects with Latvian participation. It's the whole stats, not just EIE. And a bit more than 160 million in our funding pocket. We have nearly 50 Latvian coordinators, what is a really nice indicator. So what I want to say here that Latvia is participating. We definitely can compete on this field. And of course, as NCP, I'm professionally obliged to say that these numbers can always be higher. So over to the next slide. And this slide here shows where our Horizon Europe funding is actually coming from. So you can see very large programs here, especially widening. And then we have EIE at just under 5 million euros. So EIE is definitely not, of course, the biggest part of Horizon Europe, but it is an interesting one because it sits very close to the market and to the organizations that actually make the innovation happen, what's the whole point of Horizon Europe. And the next slide, these are some of Latvian organizations. Next slide. Thank you. That participated successfully in European Innovation Ecosystem Call. And here I want you to notice the diversity. So we have companies, we have universities, associations, angel network, and even a hospital and other innovation organizations as well. So when you hear innovation ecosystem, don't automatically think this is only for universities or only for startups. It's really about bringing the right actors together. And the next slide. So what does European innovation ecosystem actually mean in practice? I decided to simplify it to you in 4 main things. So it's money, knowledge, people, and rules. So it's funding to develop and deploy innovation. It's mentoring and business support. It's networking, meaning finding the right partners and investors. And of course, the policy support, meaning trying to make the environment around innovation work better. So basically, Europe already has all, I would say, okay, a lot of excellent research, companies, investors, support organizations. So the problem is that they do not always find each other. So, and that's exactly what EIE is trying to do, is fix some of those missing connectors. And over the next slide, so if we have a glimpse also to the next program, 26-27, there are several directions here, but I want you to notice one particularly important theme. So from research to market, we are definitely very good in Europe at producing knowledge. And we are not always equally good, actually, at turning that knowledge into something that somebody actually uses, buys, or invests in. So we see a strong focus on technology transfer, commercialization. We have deep tech, scale-ups, and connections between research industry and investors. And that brings us directly to the call that is open right now. So the next slide. I'm sorry for cough. Now we finally come to the actual money. So there are several EIE calls in this work program, but today we're focusing on the one that is open right now, from lab to market, strengthening the role of technology transfer offices, or TTOs, in bringing knowledge to the market. So the call already has opened, and it opened on 9th of June, and the deadline is 22nd of September, 5 Brussels time. And the total budget for this call is 5 million euros, but this doesn't mean one 5 million euro project. The Commission expects a EU contribution of around 1 million euro per project, and indicatively expects to fund 5 projects. So you can always request a different amount, but 1 million is what, let's say, European Commission considers appropriate for addressing the topic. And another thing you need to spot that it's a CSA call, coordination support call. And what does it mean? So basically, this is not a call where the main purpose is to fund new research or develop a new technology. CSA funds activities like coordinate, connect, support, improve the innovation ecosystem, what actually the name implies. So here we are talking about the things like developing common tools and approaches, cooperation in between TTOs, improving licensing practices, maybe capacity building, sharing best practices, of course, and the very important thing, testing the new models. So you're not inventing the next technology, you're improving the system that helps existing technologies reach the market. Another important aspect that is worth mentioning, of course, for you, since of course I tracked which organizations are currently present, and I think that you already know this type of a budget. So this is lump sum grant. So for those who are not yet acquainted with that, so in simple terms, instead of reporting every individual euro you can spend, you actually spend. The activities, work packages, and corresponding lump sum are agreed in advance. So if the work package is complete as agreed, the corresponding lump sum is paid. So there is less focus on reporting every individual cost and more focus on delivering what you promised. So of course, you still need a realistic budget when preparing the proposal, and you still need to complete the work. So roughly speaking, trying to sum up, so it's 1 million euro per project, it's CSA, lump sum, and around 5 projects are going to be funded. But the question is, why actually the Commission is spending 5 million euros on this? And the answer is that Europe has identified a fairly uncomfortable problem. So we produce very good research, but too much of it remains unexploited. So the work program explicitly says that European researchers are not sufficiently connected to the universities or startups or large companies and venture capitalists that can actually play an important role in successful commercialization. So if you want something simplified, then it goes to Europe doesn't have a research problem here. It's a conversion problem here. So we have knowledge, and the question is how we turn more of that knowledge into products, services, licenses, spin-offs, commercial deals, and yada yada. And that brings us to the actual content of the call. That's the next slide. So let's now open up this call a bit. So what's the problem the Commission trying to solve? Imagine, and with a simple example, imagine I'm a company looking for technology developed by university. First, I need to find it. Then I need to understand who owns it. Then I need to find the right TTO. Then we start discussing IP and licensing, then maybe royalties, then maybe equity. And if I go to another university, I may find a completely different system. And by this point, my startup may have aged several years, made thousands of pivots, and maybe died. And this is actually quite close how the Commission describes the problem. The work program says that companies find it difficult to identify and access academic results with commercial potential. So Europe also has a relatively complex and fragmented landscape of TTOs, I would say, which creates, of course, a high transaction costs and can discourage companies, especially like startups, from working with universities. But there's also a problem on the other side. Researchers do not always have sufficient financial or non-financial as well incentives to commercialize their research. For example, commercialization activities may not necessarily contribute to their academic career progression, obviously. So there are barriers on both sides of the table. And this particular call we're talking about, from lab to market, is trying to address both. So the first big objective is to introduce more startup-friendly intellectual assessment management, then make commercialization more attractive and accessible for companies and investors, and then to improve support for researchers and students who want actually to commercialize their research. And another interesting element here is the portfolios. It's something newly introduced because this call, it's new. We have never seen such a call. It's totally newly invented. But I would say afterwards you'll see it. It's I would say next development of the previous call that we have under EAE, but it didn't have such a name. So instead, back to portfolio. Instead of looking at every intellectual asset completely separately, universities and research organizations can group assets into portfolios and potentially commercialize them as a package deals that are more attractive to industry investors. And the Commission is actually quite specific about what projects should do. So firstly, you need to identify and share existing best practice and knowledge realization. Then you need to create a common toolbox for startup-friendly licensing and technology transfer. The toolbox can use, of course, templates, it can use strategies, business models, standardized rules, adaptable clauses for, I don't know, licensing agreements, something like that. So the idea is not necessarily that every university in Europe suddenly has exactly the same contracts. There still needs to be flexibility for different national regional contexts. But we should not reinvent the wheel every single time somebody wants to license university IP. So that brings to the third point. Projects should develop a common incentives and benefit sharing models. So in simple terms, if research eventually makes money, how do we make sure there is a fair distribution of the value and the researchers and students actually have an incentive to participate in conversation? Then fourth, and I think it's particularly important, you have to test it. So the call requires at least 3 pilot cases. I bold it and put it in red, with researchers or students actually engaging in conversation activities. So this should not become another project that we produce with a beautiful report, upload somewhere, and forgot the password. So the tools and models, they need to be tested in real cases. And ultimately, these projects should contribute to something bigger, like a European blueprint for licensing, royalties, revenue sharing, equity participation, when academic institutions commercialize IP and create spin-offs. So now, who needs to be in the consortia? So we said 3 out of 3. So at least 3 beneficiaries from 3 different member states or associated countries with the program. And importantly, these 3 beneficiaries must be universities, research or high education institutions, or research and technology organizations. So at least one must be established in one country. And Latvia is a widening country. So for Latin universities and research organizations, this is obviously an interesting opportunity. And I would not interpret this as find 3 universities, put them together, and we're done. The work program also encourages the participation of innovation agencies and national or regional authorities. So particularly where they can help universities or RTUs adapt their intellectual asset management policies. And the project should consult relevant stakeholders, especially, surprise, surprise, startups and SMEs, which makes sense. So if you're developing a startup-friendly licensing model, it might be useful to ask a startup whether it is actually startup-friendly. So if I had to explain the whole call in one sentence, it would be: take several European universities and research organizations, identify what makes technology transfer unnecessarily difficult today, develop better and more, would be nice, startup-friendly ways of doing it, test those approaches on real commercial cases, and create something that can eventually be used much more broadly across Europe. And importantly, the Commission doesn't just want nicer processes. It wants more commercial, okay, let's put it another, more commercialization of academic research, more TTO deals, more joint R&D results in market-ready innovations, more spin-offs, obviously, and would be nice to have lower transaction costs around IP negotiations. And almost the final slide for me, the next slide. So what could this look like? So sometimes the easiest way, at least for me, and it's how I always used to explain things as well, to understand a call is not to read another 3 pages of Word program, but maybe to look at something that has already been funded. It's also a nice tips and tricks also sharing. So this is the project Bridge TTE. It comes from an earlier EIE call, but with a different name. It was expanding academia enterprise collaborations, but we feel the vibe. So they connect universities with companies and innovation intermediaries. They work on market validation, prototyping, entrepreneurial capacity, technology transfer, and the creation of deep tech startups and spin-offs. So I think their logic explains the new call also very nicely. So you start with academic research, then ask, does this have commercial potential? If yes, you validate it. You connect it with industry, develop the entrepreneurial side, and ideally, at the end, you have a TTO deal, a company, or a spin-off, or another route into the market. So this is the journey we're talking about. The new call essentially asks, how can TTOs make the journey faster, easier, and more attractive for researchers, companies, and investors? And it's also a nice case. You can always go on Cordis. This is the Cordis. You can have links. You have links all around the presentation. They're clickable. You have the presentation. And I just encourage you as well to go, for example, on Cordis and look at what has been funded by EIE before, to get a glimpse of how your project should look like, what should be your KPIs, your deliverables, who can be the partners, how many partners you can have to have a successful consortia, and all this information you can grasp from stats, for example, as Cordis database. So the last slide for me. Now I have explained what the call wants. And the slightly more difficult question is, how do you convince the evaluator that your proposal is the one that should be funded? So for that, I'm very happy that I don't have to give you only the NCP perspective. So we have Andres, CEO of Concentric, and you know, a good evaluator will not imagine what you probably meant. If something important is missing in your project, it's missing. So let's hear some tips and tricks from Andres. So Andres, over to you. Thank you.
Labdien, damas un kungi, man ir patiešs prieks šodien būt šeit kopā ar jums. Paldies par uzaicinājumu. And now I will continue in English. Sorry for that. So I've been allowed for a few minutes of your time. Thank you, Maria, for that. Let me share my screen. And I've been thinking carefully what to say in the next half an hour. Let me share here. Yes. So since you are here and I'm here, and we both share the same goal, which basically is maximize our chances of success in our applications, I would like to share some practical tips that you can take away and put in practice in your own applications. I would like to do this a bit interactive, collaborative, and casual. So if I say something that disturbs you or that contradicts your understanding, please don't hesitate to interrupt me, and I will appreciate that. Now, I have structured the presentation in 4 blocks. So we will have a brief review of the EIE program. We will see how to design a consortium. I will share some writing tips and then some general tips. Now, for me, the EIE stands for excellence ideas are not enough. This is not about presenting a nice idea. This is about convincing. So we need to show what is broken, who needs to change, and how we encourage that change to happen. And then the results will come. And this is basically the structure that we will follow. So we will understand the EIE, we will go to the consortium, and then the writing to explain what we will do. As Maria already introduced, the EIE has 5 different topics. One has already passed, so there are 4 remaining. We have the TTO from lab to market. She explained super nicely. So basically the purpose is a win-win strategy. All the intellectual property that has been generated in universities and research centers need to reach the market. And this is not happening as the European Commission would like to. And the second part is startups and other companies, not necessarily startups, but private companies would like to profit from or benefit from that intellectual property to provide a new solution in the market. Then there's another topic, Startup Europe, which fosters the participation on startups in foreign countries. Then we have the PCP, which is when different public entities share an unmet need and they launch a competitive tender in order to receive products that solve that need from the purchase of R&D services. And finally, we have the topic of the philanthropic in ecosystem, which basically fosters the collaboration between philanthropic organizations and the R&D ecosystem. We have 4 topics available. If I were in your shoes, I would not suggest going to the PCP because they expect to grant only 1 project. So unless you have participated in the development of the topic, this will be quite harsh. On the other hand, we have 3 CSA that are very, very interesting because they will grant 5 projects, 6 projects, and 9 projects. So this is very generous from the European Commission, and it's a nice opportunity for you. Now, if we put ourselves in the shoes of an evaluator, everything is about credibility. So we need to show that the problem is real, that we know a mechanism that will actually work, and that we as a consortium have the capacity to bring this and to make this happen. And then if we do that, the results will come and will be adapted. So the first point when we talk about EIE, this is not a marketing brochure. This is not about convincing the evaluator by using tremendous words or putting something very fancy and being super ambitious. This is an evidence-based document. If everything is evidence-based, your credibility will increase much more, right? So we need to use that focus. Now, let's move to the consortium design tips. The first problem that I find is that many entities, they think that building a consortium is like a logo wall. The more logos I have, the biggest names I have, the better. And it's actually not that, right? It's like in the Formula 1, you don't have an extra person there. You only have the people that you actually need to perform the job proficiently. So you need to ask one only question. What will fail if I don't have this partner in my consortium? If nothing fails, then this is not the right partner for your consortium. So this is not about numbers. This is not about names. This is about having the right entities in the right moment to deliver the capacities that we need. Now, the second mistake that I usually found is that people arrange the entire application in a wrong way. They start from the partners because we already know each other. We have collaborated in other projects. So then we already have set the core of our consortium. Then we will invent the tasks according to the capacities that we friends already have. We will build a work plan, and then we hopefully expect that there will be an impact aligned with the topic that we are applying to. And this is completely the wrong way. We should do the reverse engineering. So take the Startup Europe topic, for example. We first need to understand what is the expected outcome. For example, let's put Baltic startups enter in new European markets. This is our outcome. This is what we want to present to the European Commission. Then we will need to think, okay, what is the behavior that we need to change? Well, actually, we know that startups, they struggle to find customers and investors abroad. So this is the behavior that we need to change. Then we need to show how we will intervene. So if they fail on engaging with customers and investors, then we need to accelerate their cross-border, and we need to support them in the market landing abroad. If we want to do that, then we define the capabilities that we need. In this case, it would be, okay, we need someone that provides us with startups. We need someone that helps with internationalization. We will need another person, another entity that will scale up the delivery, and someone who connects them with the investors and the customers abroad. Then we already know the capacities that we need, and we will select the right partners according to those capacities. This is the way that we should build our consortium. Now, let's do a small exercise. Let's say that we want to put Baltic companies in Germany, and this is the purpose of our application. We have 8 candidates for our consortium. We have the LIAA, expert in internationalization. We have TechChill, the largest and most famous event in the Baltics that connects startups with investors and customers. We have Fraunhofer Institute in Germany. Everyone knows about them. We have Startup Lithuania, which basically groups several startups from Lithuania. We have something similar, which is Technopol in Estonia. We have Bolt, the large enterprise that everyone knows, worldwide famous. It connects with many investors, with many customers, very interesting one. We have Starting Latvia or Starting LV, a group of startups. And finally, we have Anternechmer, a German company that connects entities in Germany with investors and with customers. So now I would like you to take your phone, if possible. You have only 30 seconds. Follow your instincts, scan this QR code, and vote for the 5 entities that you would like to join in your consortium. Not a big deal. So if we don't have everyone answering, it's totally fine. Just take your time, think about the thing, follow your instincts, don't overthink, and vote for those 5 that you really feel are relevant here. Well, excellent. It doesn't matter if we have 1, 2, 3 more votes, but at least we already have some interesting results. So more or less, everyone is flat, except for Bolt. Only 3 people voted for it. Let me show you the results that I consider would be the right ones, and then let me justify why. So I will never count with TechChill. I will certainly not count on Fraunhofer, and certainly not with Bolt. And let me explain you why. TechChill is a very nice event, but it's held in Latvia. It's held in the Baltics, and this is not the purpose of our project. The purpose of our project is setting Baltic companies in Germany. So if this event was held in Germany, it would be fantastic because German companies or German entities will be aware of the startups, Baltic startups that we will send to this event. But it's in Latvia. So there is no big impact in this case. Fraunhofer Institute makes no sense because we are talking about setting startups that are already commercializing in the country, but they want to internationalize into different countries abroad. So Fraunhofer, so this is the prestige trap. Everyone wants to have Fraunhofer in their consortium, but in this case, it's useless because they work very proficiently in research and development, but we don't need those capabilities in our consortium. This is not about developing a new product or researching something new. And then Bolt is fantastic. It can connect us with several investors and potential customers, but it's very narrow on the scope. It's only for mobility. And we want to set Baltic startups abroad in a wide range of industries, not only on mobility. So then I think the best consortium would be the 3 startup associations, because they will provide us with the startup companies that we need. We need LIAA because it will help them to internationalize. And then Anternechmer will connect them with the German ecosystem, with the companies and the investors in Germany, right? Now, if despite what I said, you say, no, Andres, but we want this entity coming, we want Fraunhofer anyway, because any reason, or we want Bolt, or we want whatever it is. Okay, then I will ask you for two things. First, ask 7 questions about this partner. Is this partner providing a missing capability? Is this partner providing a missing market access, a missing geography, any critical users or buyers? Is it providing a testing infrastructure or a missing evidence or an adoption or exploitation capacity? If the answer to these 7 questions is no, then consider to join them in your consortium, not as a beneficiary, but as an associated partner, as a subcontractor, or someone in your advisory board or an event channel, but not as a beneficiary, because we need to select only the entities that really make sense. Remember the question that we say, if this entity, what will happen without this entity? Will the project fail? If the answer is no, then they should not be the beneficiary. It's like in the surgery, and like in the Formula One, you never have an extra person. You have just the people that you need to perform the job proficiently. Now, okay, everything is clear. We know the capabilities that we need. We more or less know a few partners, but we need new partners. Where can we find them? So we have several options. We can find them in the Funding and Tenders portal. There is a partner search tool. We can find them, as Maria already said, in Cordis. You can use Cordis to see similar projects that have been funded, and then you can see the partners that you participated in that funded project, and maybe contact them and see if they would like to join. Of course, you should talk to your NCP and attend brokerage events. You can also communicate with specialist networks. I leave here some links that might be interesting for you. Warm referrals, so maybe someone from your consortium knows another company or another entity, and it would be nice to, because they have the capabilities that we need, or cold calling, why not? So if you have spotted a certain entity, just call them and see if they would like to join. Now, let's move to the writing tips. The first mistake that I find when I talk to consortia is, as soon as they have the core of the consortium, they start writing immediately. They jump into the writing. And for me, that's a mistake. Before you write, you need to get familiar, very familiar with the 3 main documents. The work program, you need to read very thoroughly, and you need to understand what they are requesting in order to align your project with the requirements. Second, you need to know your application template, the official template, all the sections, all the subsections, and all the subcriteria. And finally, one document that many people misses is the evaluation form. The evaluation form is available online. If you cannot find it, just let me know, and I will gladly share it to you. Because you need to know how your proposal will be assessed. So you need to be familiar with these 3 documents. This is very important. And then 2 psychological tips. The first one, when we start writing an application, we are very excited, we have a lot of energy, and everything runs very smoothly. Now, when things go on, time passes by, we get more exhausted. We had several discussions with our partners in the consortium, and we are tired. And then we think, okay, this section is already good enough. Okay, that cannot happen. You must always raise the bar. And the point is that we look for perfection. We need to be perfectionist, and 4.5 out of 5 is not enough. We need to look for 5 out of 5. And the second mistake, which I find very frequently, is that evaluators will assess what is actually written, not what was intended to be said. So they do not have the same background that you have. They do not have the same experience that you have, and they do not understand your project as you do. So then you need to write in a way that is objectively clear, and nobody can interpret your words in a different way. Now, another useful tool that I like to use is the treasure map matrix. In this case, if we read thoroughly the TTO topic, and Maria already mentioned a few of this, you will find that they require for 3 pilot cases for licensing. They also require to create startup-friendly licensing tools. They require to develop benefit sharing model, produce an EU blueprint, and consult startups and SMEs. So when you know the requirements, you have to build this matrix and say, okay, what we will answer to each of these requirements? What evidence we can provide for each of these requirements? How those evidences will be measured and quantified through KPIs. So we need to define the KPIs. And we need to think where we will address these requirements in our application, in which sections, and finally, who will be the owner to satisfy that particular requirement. So please take your time, whether you apply to the TTO topic or to the Startup Europe or to the philanthropic or to the PCP, and build your matrix before start to writing. So you need to structure everything before writing. Now, I will give you some tips on one subsection per section. So one tip for excellence section, one tip for impact, and one tip for implementation. In the excellence section, what I find very frequently is that people do not get right what should be written in the methodology subsection, 1.2. They usually take the work plan and they just put it in the subsection of the methodology. So they will say, we will select startups, we will run workshops, we will organize matchmaking, and we will write reports. And this is completely wrong. You need to explain what was the problem, what are your assumptions, how you will intervene, how you will test, measure, and adapt. So for example, if a startup fails to scale and it's because they don't find trusted buyers, your proposal needs to mention how buyers are selected in your project, how startups will be matched, how the meetings will become pilots, and how conversion is tracked, and finally, how the model improves after each quarter. So the difference between implementation and methodology is that we will describe the tasks in the implementation section, in the work packages, but we will explain the logic of our project in the methodology subsection. Subsection 2.1, impact pathway. So again, many people confuse this with the project outcome, and they write the project outcome. So we are building this project in order to have 3 pilot cases, 4 licensing clauses, and a final blueprint. And that's it. And that is super weak. We need to explain the pathway. So we need that we will build some pilot cases that generate evidence with licensing clauses that have been tested in real deals, that some TTOs have approved and adopt this new model. Startups are facing lower upfront barriers. So we have built a blueprint that other startups and other TTOs, apart from the ones in our consortium, can use in order to leverage the intellectual property generated in universities and research centers and put them in the market. The more spin-offs and deep tech startups that can bring technologies to the market will build a stronger innovation ecosystem and a greater European competitiveness. And this is how Maria said, this is the final goal. This is what we want, changing the ecosystem. So your impact pathway should end by mentioning what is the impact in the ecosystem, not the impact in your project. Finally, regarding the work plan, everyone writes the tasks very nicely. I'm convinced about that. And we describe the scope. We usually mention who is the owner of this particular task, who are the partners, the timing, and maybe the resources. But what is important for me, and it's important for you as well later on, is to establish for each task a KPI. Explicitly mention what is the KPI for that particular task. It must be measurable and quantifiable. Why? First, because it increases credibility, and this is our ultimate goal. And second, because when you will be granted, the project officer, this is a lump sum, so this is not a justification cost program. So you will be paid when you have accomplished your work packages. And the project officer will know that you have accomplished your work packages easily if you say, yes, actually 23 startups completed the process. So they can compare what you have presented in your deliverable against what is written in your application. So that's why KPIs are very important. First, because it increases credibility. Second, because it will help you to receive the next installment of your grant. Now, As we said, you need to be very familiar with the three documents. We already mentioned the treasure map matrix with the TTO topic, but if you read also the startup topic, you will find that the pre-execution does not end when you accomplish all your work packages. They ask you to follow up during the next 3 years to track the revenue, the funding, the profitability, market share, and survival rate of the startups that participated in your project. So you need to be aware of this, and you need to explain how you will do that in your application. Don't just focus on the project execution if the topic is asking you for something else, okay? Now, I would like to put some very easy examples, couple examples, and I would like more or less to see which one is the good one. So if we are writing the methodology subsection, we have two options. One says our methodology is based on one assumption. Baltic startups with traction do not mainly fail to scale because they lack generic training. They fail because they lack trusted access to customers, investors, and buyers. And then we have another example, which says Work Package 2 will select promising startups based on clear criteria. Work Package 3 will organize practical training workshops. Work Package 4, blah, 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 blah. So this first example is just a warming up. Obviously, the good example is this. We already mentioned it. A methodology must follow the problem, the assumptions, how we will intervene, etc. Right? It's not just copy paste from the work plan. Now, here we have two different examples. One, it's very direct. It provides quantifiable data, and it provides also references. A thing that I really like because they support our claims. It says Baltic deep tech startups face a clear market access gap. 64% struggle to secure first international customers, while 48% cite fragmented procurement as a barrier to cross-border growth, according to European Commission, blah, 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 blah. The other one is more high level, so it doesn't go to the details. It just explains the things, right? So addresses a cross-border scale-up challenge. Digital and deep startups that have already demonstrated traction still need effective connections to the new European markets, investors, and public or corporate buyers. So everyone, I guess, every of you would like more Exhibit A because it gives numbers, specific information. But the reality is that the good one is, if I compare these two, is B. And why is that? Because watch out with AI and using AI, especially to provide you with references that back up your claims. This is something that we all do. So at a certain level, maybe you use it just to double check an information. Maybe you use AI to write in a more natural way or whatever it is. But if an AI provides you with a reference, please double check that that reference actually backs up your claim, because in this case, it's not true. If you go to pages 46 and 48 from this reference, it is not saying that 64% of companies are struggling to find international customers, right? So it's only because of that. If we talk about the writing style, I would like more the 4. But the point here is, please remember always to double check the sources that has been provided by an AI. Now, the next example says, Baltic 2 Markets, which is the acronym of our application, will support 250 startups from early validation stage ventures to early scale-ups through bootcamps, mentoring, incubation, and investor events. The program will build a strong pipeline of companies progressing from business validation to investment readiness and international growth, culminating in a European demo day in Berlin with curated introductions to leading investors, including VCs such as Atomico, Balderton Capital, and HV Capital. And then we have the second example. Baltic 2 Markets will support 80 digital and deep tech startups and scale-ups demonstrating traction, defined as product market fit, or at least a seed round raised. Support will focus on cross-border acceleration, market validation, and connections with customers, investors, and public or corporate buyers in target European markets. So here, the good one, or the one that is more aligned with the topic, is option B. I know many of you like more option A because it's very specific. It's giving me names from investors, and it looks very nice, but it has a very strong problem. It says that we are considering early validation stage ventures. And this topic, TTO topic, this goes to the startups internationalization, is not for early stage companies. It's specifically designed for startups that have already raised money at least once. So despite the number looks more attractive, 250 versus 80 companies, the point here is not the number. The point here is what we say and if it's aligned with the topic. And this topic asks us for more established companies and not for early ventures. Next example, LIAA, as project coordinator, will manage and monitor the financial support provided to selected startups, including grant administration, payment records, and reporting. Anternechmer will lead German market entry support, while Technopol and Startup Lithuania will contribute to startup selection, acceleration, and follow-up. Exhibit B says Anternechmer will manage the financial support scheme for selected startups, including grant administration payments, compliance checks, and monitoring, building on its extensive experience in running startup acceleration program. LIAA, as project coordinator, will oversee overall project reporting, while Technopol and Startup Lithuania will support company selection and program delivery. So Anternechmer has a lot of experience in financial support scheme. However, the rules from the European Commission say that it's mandatory that only the project coordinator can manage the financial support to third parties. So this is not a rule from the topic. This is a rule from the European Commission, right? From the grant agreement. So since only the project coordinator can manage and monitor the financial support to third parties, even if Anternechmer has greater experience on that, we cannot delegate that function to them, and we only will oversee the overall project reporting. So what I want to say with this example, focus on your project, on your consortium capabilities, on the outcomes, on the impact on the ecosystem, get familiar with the evaluator form and with the official template and the work program, but also with the general rules, right? Finally, last example, each participating TTO will create a technology deal room where individual assets are assessed professionally and packaged and matched with suitable startup and investors. In the other example, participating TTOs will identify complementary intellectual assets across research groups and organize them into thematic portfolio that can commercialize through packaged deals. If we read thoroughly the topic, we will find that the EIE wants to build packages that combine different intellectual property rights, not just fostering individual patents, right? So again, in this case, the good example would be Exhibit B. Now, some general tips. The first one, this first text is fantastic, it's very ambitious, it's positive, but it's impossible to score for an evaluator. It doesn't say how many, it doesn't say which companies, what support, what evidence, or what measure results. On the other hand, we have another example, which basically is credible. And remember, this is the ultimate goal when we write applications. It specifies the target, it quantifies the need, it defines intervention, it tracks conversion, and it's written with specificity, quantifiable and measurable KPIs, and with references, in this case, valid references that back up our claims. Now, my final suggestion is that before you submit your application, use a red team. Use someone else who has not been directly involved in the writing of the application to assess your proposal before you submit. It can be internal, an internal cross-check. So it can be someone from your consortium or that has not participated in the writing. So they will check all the things. It has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that it's easy to find these people, and these people will be motivated to perform a nice analysis. The disadvantage is that these people will be biased because they are part of the project. So they will read it in a very positive way. The second option is having an external evaluation. So someone out from our consortium that can read our application to give us honest feedback and objective feedback. So the advantage is that the feedback will be very valuable. The disadvantage is that usually it's difficult to find these people, and it's very difficult to motivate these people because they have their own problems. So they don't have time to read your application and make a very deep review and give you your feedback. There is a third option, which is using technology. This is a platform that we have created, Ruthless Evaluator. It basically confronts your application against the work program, the topics, the official template, the evaluator form, and our internal tips coming from the experience of having raised over 300 million for our clients in EU funding. So basically, this is what Ruthless Evaluator does, and it will give you very actionable inputs in order to improve your application. It will check everything, and basically it has all the advantages and no disadvantages. It will be very motivated, it will be very objective, and it's very easy to find, right? Obviously, I'm not neutral with this because it's a platform that we have created. But the important thing here is not using one tool or using one solution or the other. The important thing here is that before you submit your application, you use a red team, whether it's Ruthless or whether it's a person or it's whatever it is, one different tool, I don't care. But the important thing, the final message is that someone external, or internal but not involved in the writing of the application, reads your application, gives you feedback before you submit. If any of you is interested on testing Ruthless Evaluator, I will be more than glad to share an invitation code so you can test it by your own, no commitment, totally for free, just so you can feel how it works. Paldies, thank you so much, everyone. And this is everything from my side.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andres. It was amazing. I actually was shocked by the examples you provided. I'm like, definitely this one. And
that was the point.
All my experience, I'm like, no, but it should be this. And then like, oh yeah, exactly. It was amazing. Thank you so much. Any questions? You can write in the chat, you can raise your hand, take the mic, and we are here. It is like that in the Baltics. It's normal.
People is shy or they don't just have questions. Okay, Linda, excellent.
Yes.
Because I don't like this, that nobody's talking. I see one problem in all Horizon, this system, that it's a summertime when we need to write projects and get partners. It's very, very difficult. It's a very big problem because all Europe is in vacation, everybody is in summer, and then second part of September, we need to finish project proposals. It's always in very big hurry, always with mistakes. That would be great to change this time to autumn or to winter or to spring, but not during the summer. It's with many Horizon programs.
I guess it's beyond our influence.
Yeah, I totally agree with Linda. But I think historically, I've been working in EU funding since 2014. And I always remember that the big month of the year for collaborative programs was always September. Also, they like after Christmas to have in some other programs, which is fantastic. But the answer to that, Linda, is that all the universities and research centers, they know this, and those that work on EU funding, there's always someone available, usually. So it's true that most of the team is on holiday, and it's unfortunately it's as it is. But you will always find, if you need to find someone for your consortium, I guess there's always some person available there, some people available in every entity.
I would add that usually what we try to do, and also if you follow some online magazines, like for example, Science and Business, currently preparing for the next, I don't know, work program or something, there are drafts already leaked online, so you can plus minus already start before, because what I at least understood, and I guess we're working with Andres, I also started from 2014 on my journey. So, what I learned is that to start project preparation with the call opens, it's late. So you need to start well before. So I guess that's the ultimate question, that we can't, let's say, exclude seasonality in this, but we definitely can prepare. And I guess here in my capacity, this is what we try to do. We try to notify you timely about all of the new changes. So we try to timely put the new work program or tell you some news about the drafts or something, so you can start preparing earlier than the official start.
Fortunately, in the EIE, we know which will be the topics for 2027. So exactly what Maria said, we can prepare everything in advance because we already know the topics.
Thank you, Linda. Any other questions, colleagues? Of course, if you have afterwards some, I don't know, reflections, or I don't know, you slept on this amazing event, and afterwards tomorrow you have a bright idea and you want to check it, you can always email us as well. It's also an option. So I see that there are no questions in the chat. I don't see the raised hand, so I don't see the reason why should I make you stay longer. So thank you, everybody. I hope that this event was useful because it already, for me, it was extremely useful. Thank you, Andres, again for that. And I hope we'll have more events together because I find it definitely instructive, insightful to collaborate with you. Definitely, please all check Ruthless Evaluator. And as you know, if you have been to some of my lectures, if you call it lectures, events, then I already mentioned Ruthless Evaluator from time to time, and I really enjoy myself playing around with it. So have a really nice day, a productive end of week, and I hope to see super many applications and a very qualitative one. So make Latvia statistic great again. Let's raise the bar. Have a nice day. Thank you so much. And afterwards, I guess we'll follow with a short survey on how you like the event, so we can afterwards reflect and make our events even better. And please respond, because all the time when I submit a survey after the event, I get one response, which is really pity. And I want to know that we did great and that there is a motivation to make more events for you. And I hope that the materials will follow. So I guess maybe tomorrow or maybe on Monday latest, you'll find a link to a video recording and also to the PPT materials. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Good day.
Karina still stayed with us for last week. So I guess we did great. I can actually stop the recording.